All right, friends, welcome back to Crypto Internet with Muneeb Ali, co-founder of Stacks, and Patrick Stanley, CEO of Freehold. Today on Crypto Internet, we're speaking with Chiente, who is the founder of Alex. And Alex is an open source DeFi protocol built on the Stacks blockchain. Alex gives users a simple way to lead and borrow Bitcoin in a significantly cheap manner. I think I said lead, what I meant to say is lend. We're also talking to Ken Kruger today, the CEO of Moon. And for those of you not familiar with Moon, they have this very cool Chrome extension that in seconds just allows people to create a virtual credit card loaded with fiat, but using their Bitcoin balance. I personally believe that this conversation is going to be very encouraging, and you're likely going to have a ton of questions. We ask that you save those to the end. We are going to give you time to do it. All right, Patrick, Muneeb, take it away.
Hey gang, how's it going? I think like we do usually, maybe some of the speakers that are not Muneeb and myself can go around and kind of give their backgrounds and give a little bit of an introduction on sort of what they're doing in their own words.
All right, sure. So should I start?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, hi, my name is Chiente. Thank you for joining us today. I am CEO and co-founder of Alex, and Alex is one of the first DeFi on Bitcoin built on Stacks. And as the introduction said that we are the open source DeFi protocol modeled on the world financial markets. And the reason we say that model on the world financial market is because the co-founders, including myself, we are, and don't be mad at us, we are Wall Street veterans, and we are a bunch of financial engineers. And we are quants, you're right. And myself, I was a professor in financial econometrics. I joined Wall Street. I have been managing directors at Credit Suisse and Morgan Stanley. And I was heading multi-billion quant businesses there. And the reason why we started Alex, and I also want to emphasize the reason why we built on Stacks to be one of the first DeFi on Bitcoin is the following. I mean, to start, at Alex, you can lend your Bitcoin, you earn fixed variable rates, you can borrow your Bitcoin without the risk of liquidation, et cetera, et cetera. But really today, I would like to share my vision of Alex, right? So the vision of Alex is the following, that we want to create financial products and marketplaces that provide a more efficient way to offer leverages. Okay, now there are a lot of words here, and I want to make it really simple for all of us. If you look at the landscape of the traditional financial market, it's rich and complex, but there are mainly really three pillars. One is the financial needs, right? We all have financial needs. The state, the cities, and I want to shout out to Mind City Coins. I think this is really the idea of the generation. So the financial needs of individuals, private sectors, states, cities, et cetera, et cetera. These needs are packaged as debt of all kinds. Right, so that's number one. Financial needs is a debt. Then we have those financial institutions. They come up, they create lots of different financial instruments, such as bonds, treasury bonds, loans, what Moon is offering, credit cards, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the financial instruments. But most importantly, to make a financial market work efficiently, we need leverage. And leverage sounds like a bad word, but it's really the heart and engine of an efficient financial world, financial market. And this is continuously created through different derivatives, right? So through Stack smart contracts, we want to build this financial world on Bitcoin. And this is our vision. And I want to emphasize Bitcoin. Why? Because in our view, this is the upcoming monetary system. So coming back to think about, I joined Wall Street more than 2 decades ago. All the financial crises I remembered, right, really caused by three shortfalls. Number one is there's always one or more centralized entities that acts as bad actors. Examples are, remember the great financial crisis, before that, all these rating agencies, they would package those bad debt as AAA And our parents, our own pension, the funds, they would buy those debt and thinking that they were really top-notch debt, and they were not, right? So there are always some centralized entity that, they just have those incentives to act bad. And number two is really over-leveraging, right? So if you think of Bear Stearns, if you remember LTCM, the hedge fund, or even Lehman, the ultimate problem with those things happen is because those people over leverage. And number three, I think also really, really important is the information asymmetry, the intransparency, right? So with LTCM, the banks didn't know that the LTCM went to every bank and just get the leverage from every bank. The shareholder of Lehman didn't know that they were over leveraged. So if you think about if some bad actors had those incentives in the centralized entity, the over leveraging and the information asymmetry, all these problems can be solved by what? Smart contract. And that's why, we founders and Alex are so excited to build this. We think this is our chance to build a very efficient, everybody's bank, a well-functioning financial world on Bitcoin via stacks. So that's what Alex is. But I talk a lot, so just Patrick, when you just shut it down because otherwise keep out it down. Thank you.
Yeah, Chiente, that was great. I think we just got like a crash course in the financial crisis. To just recapping before we go on to Ken, the first issue was ratings agencies that could just rate anything, whatever they want. So they rate bad things as good. That was an issue. Another issue is information asymmetry, meaning a bunch of people could, one entity could essentially over leverage itself with various institutions without those various institutions knowing that between each other that one entity had done so. Is that correct?
Correct. And then the third is over leveraging, right? You get those leverage that you actually cannot pay back. And this applies very much so why I'm such a fan of my City Coin. I should talk about Alex, but let's City Coin. You think about there's some treasurers of a city, of a municipal, right? So they do often have the incentive overspend because they want to get voted, et cetera, right? And if you think about if one can utilize city coins to finance the city's projects, all the problems I have mentioned actually can be solved.
We should definitely talk about city coins later in the call, and I really appreciate your zeal for city coins because you literally wrote the book on rule-based investing and have a lot of experience with municipal debt. So I think we're gonna have like a nice big sort of chapter of today's call to go into that. And really appreciate the kind words.
Awesome, Patrick. I'm gonna quickly chime in that it's great to see you here. See you here, Chiente. I didn't realize this earlier, but one of the early persons who worked on stacks with me is a professor at Princeton, JP Singh. He's a board member for my company here as well, and he's like one of the most intelligent people I know. Very low key, and it's such a small world that I think Chiente is friends with JP, and that's how we connected earlier.
That's right, Muneeb. It was end of April this year. It feels like 10 years ago. It feels like I have known you and Patrick for 10 years, but it's really just 3 months. And you remember that time when JP introduced us, and I said, Muneeb, I trust JP so much that I will leave my kids with him. And I literally 2 summers ago, I left my kids with him, and I went to travel to China.
That's great.
Yeah, he didn't even say he would take him. You just gave him to him. Yeah. And same here, right? Like as I said, he's very low key, but he's literally like one of the smartest people I know or that exists on this planet. And JP says great things about you. So I think when you were talking about potentially working in the stacks ecosystem, I was like, you couldn't have come with a stronger recommendation.
Thank you so much. And also, if I still have 2 minutes, could I talk about my experience with the Accelerator?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So number one, the mentors at Accelerator, they are kick butt mentors. They literally, I don't know how, do they sleep at all? Number one, I cannot figure out which time zone they are. Right? These are machines. And then Muneeb, first, and Patrick, 3 months ago, you advised me to join the Accelerator program. I was like, oh my God, I feel I'm so old. And now I'm going back to MBA program again. But I'm thinking about it. It was such a great advice because without joining the Accelerator program, I wouldn't know if we would have been going so fast. It's a great framework to make sure that we stay on the track and to minimize the probability of failing. That's why we say is what I got out of the Accelerator. For example, they would teach us, you can't go out there when you're perfect. You just cannot. It's just not the startup mentality. You have to go out there when you think you're good enough. Don't be perfect. But don't worry to fail. You go, you pitch your vision, your story, make sure you put that behind. But go and you need to pivot, make sure this is the stuff people need, etc., etc. This is not what MBA or PhD would teach you, right, Muneeb? We didn't learn this at school. This is really, I would say, the compressed version of startup MBA course being compressed into 3 months. So I want to shout out to the team at Accelerator, Victoria, Trevor, Alex, Andrea. Thank you so much for really holding our hands so tight, making sure that Grace. We are really minimizing, and Grace, I'm sorry, Grace. Hello, Grace. Minimizing the probability of failure, I would say. And honestly, I don't know how one could ever start out without, joining the Accelerator program. So I want to encourage anybody who is today here, if you have an idea, right, apply and come to the Stack Accelerator program, because your probability of being successful, I hope that will be for Alex, it will be maximized because people do care. People do care that you make it. That's it. I'm going to mute. I talk too much. I'm sorry.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Who's next?
Ken, go for it. All yours.
Hey, so I'm Ken. I'm the founder of Moon. And what we're trying to do is really build the platform that allows you to live on Bitcoin. So the idea behind this is really, I believe that we're all going to be living on Bitcoin someday. It's going to happen a lot sooner than you may think. And what we've launched so far is a platform that lets you spend your Bitcoin. So as mentioned earlier, we have a browser plugin. It allows you to spin up a virtual Visa card. You can load that with Bitcoin, and then you can spend that at any US merchant. The really interesting components to it are, one, it's very private. It's effectively the most private way to spend Bitcoin on the internet right now because there's no KYC requirement, no requirement to provide any personal identifying information. Beyond that, we are non-custodial. So you can load a card directly from a wallet of your choice, or we're integrated with Coinbase, so you can load a card directly from your Coinbase account. And third is we don't charge you any fees. So it's the least expensive off-ramp for your Bitcoin. So that's what we have today. But ultimately, we're looking to build a fully fledged product that lets you live on Bitcoin. So imagine a modern banking app, whether that's Chase or Chime or something like that. But imagine the back end of that system being entirely built on Bitcoin. That's our ultimate goal. We think that there's a lot of value to that. I was surprised a few years ago when I started this project that there was kind of nothing like that out there and nobody was building it. And I've been around the Bitcoin world since 2010 and not professionally, just kind of as a hobby. And then it was the price run up in 2017, 2018 when everyone's grandma was mortgaging off their house to buy Bitcoin. And I was thinking to myself, there's a lot of scam projects out there. There's a lot of garbage going on. And no one is building something that is going to support this inevitable future of people living on Bitcoin. So that was really my motivation behind this. I'm an engineer. I used to work on military projects, and just always loved the idea of Bitcoin. So I decided a couple of years ago to make it my full-time life. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Awesome. And how's your experience been so far with the Stacks Accelerator? By the way, for people who don't know this, like I'm not affiliated with the Stacks Accelerator at all. Like it's an independent entity. I think I'm supposed to help a bunch of startups there, but I've been focusing on other things and not really have done that.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of accelerator programs. I've been through a bunch of them. I really enjoyed the Stacks one. So generally, programs that I've gone through in the past have been very general, right? Generally, accelerators you can kind of categorize as they're generalists, and they'll just take almost any type of company, and then you have specific ones. And really what I like about Stacks is that it's focused on the Bitcoin and crypto world. And that's what's been really important, because the mentors that you get connected with are really the most relevant ones, right? They understand the industry. Having gone through another accelerator program, they don't understand Bitcoin. You're getting introductions to mentors that have absolutely nothing to do with your business, right? So I really like the programming. The deal is fantastic. The people are fantastic. I've had a really great experience so far working with everybody. So, if someone's interested in building on Stacks or building something in the Bitcoin space, I highly recommend that you check out the Stacks Accelerator.
Awesome. Jan, how do you want to run this?
Yeah, we've got some questions already coming in. One question off the top of my mind for you, Ken. So it sounds like your business model is not tightly tied to Stacks yet. That said, how are you planning to leverage Stacks to further elevate your business proposition?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's a few aspects to it. One is that we're going to be a fiat off-ramp for Stacks. So if you have Stacks tokens, we are going to let you spend them, right? That's just a basic thing we'll be offering. Beyond that, we want to utilize Stacks in our platform so that we want to offer a custody solution that is not entirely custodied by us, right? So by using the Stacks smart contract platform, we want to have a solution where, hey, you can deposit some Bitcoin. You're going to get a yield on that Bitcoin, but we want to make sure that we don't require you to provide any KYC information. So we really want to be, I don't know how else to say it other than a non-custodial service, right? Where you deposit Bitcoin, you're getting a yield, but I don't need to know, that KYC information. So that's really what we're looking to leverage Stacks for at this point.
Thanks for that. Bowtied Arctic Wolf, great name. Go ahead with your question.
Hi, I'm familiar with the Accelerator program. And as far as I know, the round one is closed and it's ongoing, like the first cohort of companies already there. I know there's going to be second round, but I'm not sure when it's going to happen. So do you have any idea when it might happen?
Sure. Alex, do you want to take that question?
I can tell you this much, that the demo days are in early September. So it's likely not going to be before that. So once the first batch is done, I think there will be some post processing. But as I said, I'm not from Stacks Accelerator.
Yeah, sorry guys, I was doing something. My phone would not let me switch back. You asked about the second program, so it's probably going to start later this year, like at the end, towards the end of the year. But we don't have a full date in mind. In general, right now we're targeting to do 2 programs per year. So we'll take probably a couple of months break.
Hey, Alex, is there a newsletter, like an email newsletter they can sign up for?
Yes, actually, yeah. So great, thank you. If you go to stacks.ac, the website, there's a way to sign up for updates.
Awesome, thank you.
Great, Andrew, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hi, this is, I think, for Muneeb. One of the, so I've become a fan of Stacks over the past few months. I'm kind of a noob in the crypto world. And when I've talked to some of my friends and tried to explain to them what Stacks is and what makes it unique is the proof of transfer and ultimate settlement on the Bitcoin blockchain, one of the questions or the statements that I get back is, okay, so it's kind of like a layer 2 chain, but for Bitcoin. And my response has been, well, that's kind of how I thought about it at first, but I saw this video with the founder who he really refers to it as more of a layer 1 chain and or a layer 1 integration. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about like the details of what exactly like settlement on the Bitcoin chain ultimately means, and how in your mind it's more of a layer 1 solution or versus layer 2, because I'm very interested in hearing more about that.
Yeah, I think we get that a lot, right? And let's first set the context that if we would have just gone out and built a separate blockchain, and plenty of people have done that, in some ways, like that's simpler, right? It's easier to do as well. Like you control the system, you're building a new, distributed system, you can just do that. And in some ways, people can even understand it a little bit better because like, hey, here's another blockchain, and it's like whatever, faster, cheaper, whatever properties you can, so But I think we really believe in Bitcoin. We think that Bitcoin is sovereign money, and it is such a huge market to try and enable applications around Bitcoin directly. So we have to almost like build something that is cross-chain by definition. So our consensus mechanism actually runs on the Bitcoin side, but it makes our life a little bit harder in terms of explaining like what Stacks is. At a high level, sometimes people just say that, oh, it's a smart contract layer for Bitcoin. And I think that's simple. Like, okay, it's a layer. You don't get into is it an L2, is it an L1, whatever, but it's a smart contract layer for Bitcoin. It adds the smart contract functionality. But the devil is always in the details, right? When people kind of like start going into the details that, okay, you can't really modify Bitcoin. So how exactly are these smart contracts like for Bitcoin? Because they're not running on the Bitcoin block. And then that's where the details come out. So the way this is designed is that think of like visually as almost like a separate layer that connects to Bitcoin. So almost like a consensus between 2 blockchains, which is a completely new thing. It didn't exist before Stacks. And the Stack side can actually understand Bitcoin transactions. So it has full visibility on the Bitcoin side. That's how the native swaps that recently came out are happening. So if you do a pure Bitcoin transaction, you can trigger smart contract logic on the Stack side. So you can just do a Bitcoin transaction and buy an NFT or buy Miami coin or something like that. But in terms of classification, we actually honestly debated that should we call it like layer 1.5, like, no, because it's really not a L2. In some ways, it's closer to an L1.
Yeah, okay.
It is closer to an L1. The difference between kind of like the strict definition between an L2 and an L1 is an L2 like Lightning would benefit from 100% of Bitcoin's security, or even on Ethereum. If there's a true L2 on Ethereum, it would benefit from 100% of the security of Ethereum, right? But on the flip side, you're also limited then by the programming ability of Bitcoin script. So that's why Lightning wouldn't have like full smart contracts, because you're limited by Bitcoin script. But we wanted to have full smart contracts, so we have clarity. But for that, almost like by definition, you're not bound by Bitcoin script. So you're actually living outside of Bitcoin script. So we kind of like benefit from Bitcoin security, but it's not 100%, right? So there's a really good blog post. It's on stacks.org/stacks dash blockchain. You can search for it. It basically says what type of a blockchain is Stacks, and then it goes into the detail. So Stacks has its own security budget, like it benefits from the Bitcoin security. I'm not going into the detail, but it is not 100% secured by Bitcoin's hash power, if that makes sense. And the limitation there was, if we would have done that, then we wouldn't have full smart contracts. Then we would be limited by Bitcoin script, which is actually pretty
Right.
limited. Hopefully
Great,
that
thank
makes
you so
sense.
much.
Great. I have a question for Chiente. When is Alex launching on mainnet?
So mainnet launch will be early November. Testnet launch will be mid-September. And so we are going to bother all of you to come to our testnet, that's for sure. And we are very, very excited about it.
That's awesome. Who do you think in the audience should be most excited about Alex? I know I am, but would love to hear your thoughts.
Well, all the stacks, the whole stacks communities, right? So you're going to be able, not just really passively stacking, you can come to lend, borrow, and Miami coin, please come. You know, we could use Miami as collateral and borrow, for example, stable coins. You know, we're going to get the whole financial market working, build on stacks. And also, obviously, you know, the yield farmers, you know, nowadays they're all on Ethereum. They could come to Alex to do yield farming. You can do, you know, we call it carry trade in the traditional finance world. In crypto world, people call it, you know, one of the strategy yield farming. You could come, get a leverage, and then get more and more return, you know, in a very secure and transparent way.
Chiente, why? Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to ask,
You go.
why Alex? I feel like you have some great stories.
Oh, that's a great. Okay, so Rachel and I are actually very, very good friends. I know you say, yeah, you shouldn't do business with friends. You know, I just, you know, I love my co-founders. She's a great friend, and she always said that, Chana, you wrote a book, so you know, you can leave something to the kids. But I have nothing. I said, okay, we're going to make an Alex coin. So Alex is her son's name, but also like 4 o'clock in the morning, New York time, I was you know, messaging her. I said, I got a great name. It's Alex. We're gonna have Alex token, and Alex stands for aggregated liquidity exchange, and that's really what we are. So if you have kids, just DM me. We'll try to make the coins after your kids.
No, it's very cool though. I mean, it makes the name makes sense as well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Can I just, Chiente, could you also say what Alex stands for?
Yeah, it's for automated liquidity exchange. Automated, obviously, through smart contract. And liquidity is that, you know, we are financial market. We need all the liquidities and make an exchange so that all the participants in this financial market can find what they want, can meet their financial needs. So automated liquidity exchange, Alex. And you know, the upside, that's what we found out afterwards. You know, first, you know, meeting the Accelerator Alex, he really, really liked our name. I think Alex, that's the reason why we got accepted to the Accelerator program, right? So the whole world, anybody whose name is Alex or Alexandra, they really have bias towards us.
Nice. So could you explain a little bit? I don't know. You've done a little bit of explaining as to like how it works. So I'd love to like double click in a little bit and understand what is actually going on under the hood. So are folks depositing Bitcoin or stacks to borrow stable coins to do things like trade or what exactly is going on under the hood? Yeah.
Okay, sure. So if I may be, you know, put my hood as a finance professor, please don't yawn. At this point, I'll be very quick, right? you should think about, for a well-functioning, when I say well-functioning, people don't come to steal your money. Well-functioning financial world, you really need a few things. Number one is that you need a very coherent interest rate, right? Interest rate model. What it means is that, there's, if for example, your 3 months fixed rate is going to be the same for any similar type of instrument. So the first thing we build behind the hood in Alex, we build the interest rate model, and that's really the financial engineering background of ours. But this interest rate model allow us to offer very coherent fixed rate product, right? You can come lend and borrow with fixed rate, right? You can say, okay, in 3 months, if I deposit my Bitcoin in 3 months, I can get, let's say, I'm just making up 10% yield. So that's number one. And that's why the interest rate model is needed. At the moment, there are not that many DeFi are doing this, right? Quite a few places you could see the interest rate is actually, number one is variable. So it's like every day or every night is different, right? Per market demand. Or number two is like voted or decided by some committee, right? So we really build the interest rate model that is going to be coherent so we can provide coherent fixed rate lending and borrowing. And number two is about the borrowing part, right? This is what we did day in, day out on Wall Street, is that we actually, when people come to borrow money and they put the collaterals, we manage the collaterals. At the moment, in lots of DeFis, what you do is that, okay, you post, the loan to value is very, very, very high in the sense that you have to deposit quite a lot in order to borrow. For example, you have to deposit $200 worth of coins in order to borrow $100 worth of stable coin. And the reason is that many DeFis, they don't manage the collateral for you. They just sit there and you are subject to all the risk of the volatility of this particular coin, right? And when this coin's price hits certain value, boom, you are being liquidated. But what we do, or we have done in banking, is we will use the option strategies or option techniques, option-like techniques to manage your collateral. And this is not coming out of my head. These people have been done this for decades, right? Black-Scholes, they won the Nobel Prize for that. So because we are doing that, and then again, this is nothing new. It is done in all financial world. We can offer much more aggressive loan to value. So that's number two, and et cetera, et cetera. So any coins in the very beginning, Bitcoin, stablecoin, Miami point can come be as a collateral, or can, or one can borrow those coins to go and do, for example, you need a Bitcoin to do yield farming, right? So I want to each think about that. It's almost like a commercial bank offering CDs plus the investment bank, but don't think that as a bad word. It's good word. Is that we offer leverage in a very transparent way, right? And then to meet everybody's financial needs, right? You can leverage, you can protect your downside, but the commercial bank part is that, you can get healthy CDs. So that's what Alex is.
It seems nice that people can have a little bit more predictability in terms of interest rates and things like that. So it allows you to plan further in the future, and also, essentially not have to have so much leftover capital to offset, potential shortfalls and things like that, which is great. I'm wondering, how does the option side work? Because originally I was thinking, okay, are you pricing the interest rate based on previous volatility? But it sounds like no. It sounds like you're doing some sort of hedge sort of thing. Is that correct or no?
Yes. So we do kind of, I would say, collateral management, right? Almost like collateral trade management. So in a very, very simple way, it's not really that we are creating options. It's that we use an option theory, option technology to manage the collateral. So think about, for example, Patrick, you give me 100 of a Miami coin as collateral, right? And then you borrow, let's say, a 200 stable coin. Now, when I get your 100 Miami coin, I don't just put it there and then Astafula, in case the my Bitcoin price goes down, suddenly you need to get liquidated, and then you need to give back your stablecoin. What we do behind is we do portfolio management of your Miami coin. So immediately we will split your Miami coin into two parts. One is Miami coin, the other one is stablecoin. And then we'll start delta. We call it delta hedging, right? So whenever Miami coin goes up, we'll buy, and whenever Miami coin down, we sell. But we get a stable coin, so that your Miami coin collateral will never go down to certain value. That's why we call it, no risk of liquidation. When we say no risk, means that because if again, Astafula, the Miami coin price go down a certain level, we already protected you. That we already have the stable coin there for you. So that's
you're like protecting in real time with.
Yes.
Got it. No wonder that won the Nobel Prize. That's.
Yeah, they won the Nobel Prize. Yes, I'm the best student of this. I actually spoke to my own show a few months ago, and I was telling him that I wanted to do this. He said, "Yeah, go for it."
Is anyone else doing this in the crypto space that you know of?
Well, not we are aware of. But as you know, the other reason why we love this blockchain crypto world is also that we build on each other's technology. So I'm very sure somebody will come, very quickly adapt all this. But, we are on Stack, and that's what I want to emphasize again. We are very, very, very close to Bitcoin. And if you think about, why there's a kind of a hurdle for institutions to come to, not just hold their Bitcoin, but make their Bitcoin work. The other thing I would love you and Muneeb to also address it is really about security. And I always like to say, money management should be boring but safe. If you look at Alex, we might not have the flashiest UI UX, but because we chose Stacks, we feel really, really secure about doing all these things through smart contract.
That's great. One more question for you, and I should stop. But when you all launch on mainnet, are people going to be able to maintain their privacy when they use the project, or will you have to do KYC AML checks?
No, I think that's a really beauty. That's a really advantage of DeFi, right? So your wallet is your wallet, right? You don't need to bring the asset in your wallet onto our platform. So no KYC, no AML.
Sorry, now I'm getting more curious. So does a smart contract automatically sort of do these like offset buys and sells when the price changes?
Yeah.
If so, how much time do you need for that smart contract to execute to sort of limit loss? I guess, like, say for example, the smart contract is delayed by 10 minutes. Is that okay, or does it need to be in real time?
We kind of chat, with the development within Stacks. We are, by the way, I also want to shout out to the Stack developer team that really holds our hands throughout this journey. Is that with the new development of the microblocks, we think it's okay. We did lots of simulations, but I think at the moment we are thinking the speed is okay. But obviously, we are growing together with Stacks. We hope that the more, the technology or the time, the time will be shorter and shorter for us to be able to do even more continuous things on Stacks. Yeah.
Yeah, I think microblocks help a lot there.
Yeah.
So they should be going live in a order of weeks from now, I think.
That's really great news. Yeah.
So I just like to ask Chiente, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. So apologies if I butcher your name there. My sincere apologies.
No, it's perfect. Chiente, but it's very, very good.
Okay, Chiente, I just want to check. You just mentioned you use Black-Scholes model. Now, what's the leverage behind controlling the volatility? If I put 1 Bitcoin as collateral to get a yield of that, it's a 70 vol asset. I mean, what's the leverage behind there that you use to counteract that volatility?
Right. So volatility in Black-Scholes is an input, right? That's something that we cannot control, right? So when volatility is very, very high, we need to pretty much delta hedges faster, I would say. So itself has no, I wouldn't say there's a leverage when you do those delta hedging, right? You just have to be fast. And that's why what Muneeb mentioned, that microblock is, we have to use that. But if you go to the banks, they don't delta hedge, even if in the most liquid market, let's say U.S. Treasuries, right, or S&P, the mini futures, Black-Scholes is a continuous world, but in reality, you can't have to come to discrete world, right? And as long as the volatility is not going to infinity, in the sense that it's mean reverting, I love volatility, by the way. We can have another session on volatility. As long as it's a mean reverting, right, Black-Scholes hold, the generalized Black-Scholes hold. So when you do those delta hedging, you are fine. It holds. But I'm not sure there's leverage behind, but we can talk about this, and we'll DM each other. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I love that. The reason I asked that question is because Black-Scholes model were used by LTCM, and they went down with that particular model.
No,
hence why I was wondering if I use.
They don't. No. I know it's. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
It's okay.
Yeah. So Myron was a managing partner there, right? So that's Myron show. But Black-Scholes is really a model that under certain very reasonable assumptions, how we can price option in a closed form solution. Yeah. So the problem with LTC, and now we can talk about it, is that 24 years later, right? It's really over leveraged, right? They thought that they had lots of relative value trades, so strategies. Relative value means that you don't take the big bet, the directional bet. You say, oh, if A happened, usually B happened the other way, so I'm going to trade A minus B. So I just trade those mean reversion, right? Actually, they were not. They were taking a lot of directional bet that went sore. And on top of that, they went to every bank very aggressively, getting the leverage in a very cheap way. And that's what happened. And when it happened, the banks are in trouble. And then at the end, we need Fed and all the central banks to come to bail us out. And don't get me started. And that's why we want to build this thing on stacks.
Right. Thank you. I'll DM you later for further understanding.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you. I think I just lost everybody with Black-Scholes. My apology.
That was great.
Great. Ken, I have a question. What are you most excited about with regards to your current product with Moon and the roadmap?
Yeah, great question. So really right now, what's really exciting is really where our users are coming from. So when we launched the product, it was a little more than 4 months ago, I really just thought it was going to be Bitcoiners in the United States. But it ended up that the majority of our users were in Latin America. And that was really interesting. When I really initially saw our product as a privacy-focused product, what happened as a side effect is that people who are undocumented ended up using our product more than anybody else. And so we have a lot of people in Venezuela, Argentina, places where they have hyperinflation and they're experiencing other issues within their governments with their currencies. And they found Moon as a solution to make cross-border payments. So that was super interesting, and it was very exciting to see that when I started getting emails from people saying, "No, your product changed my life." I'm like, what? Why? I didn't see that coming. So that was really exciting to know that we're actually impacting people in that way, and we're definitely going to be doubling down on that by localizing for these regions, make sure it's translated to local languages where people are experiencing currency crises. So that's what's exciting about today. And moving forward, it's really about having having a platform that really competes with banks, right? Everybody thinks about, crypto and we don't like the banks, the crypto is so much better, solves all these problems. Yes, but where is that consumer-facing product that lets you just kind of live entirely on crypto? I think there are components of that in a variety of different products, but there's nothing that kind of has it all in one place, a really simple user experience. Where a lot of people are building, they're at the base layer, they're at the second layer, they're building the DeFi platform. What really excites me is delivering value to the end user. I really like developing user experiences, user interfaces, and really capturing the value that's created with crypto and DeFi, and really driving that directly to a consumer who may not know anything about crypto whatsoever. And they really shouldn't have to, right? It's almost like we want to use that as more of a back-end technology. So I'm pretty excited to continue building this out. It's a long product roadmap. There are a lot of regulatory hurdles to get through, and figuring out on the tech side what the right way to build it. So a lot of exciting stuff coming down the pipe.
Very exciting. Thanks, Ken. Jonathan, go ahead with your question.
Oh yeah, thanks for bringing me up. I'm just curious to this technology that's being built as a second or third or fourth layer on top of Bitcoin. And from my understanding, there's a smart contract that governs the funds. Can someone explain to broaden my understanding of how that works?
Which project are you talking about?
Stacks or Sovereign, for example.
Maybe it's worth, this might be a question for Muneeb. Maybe worth rephrasing the question. You said there's a smart contract governing the funds. Are you talking about the flow of funds, or are you talking about some sort of treasury?
Let's say that I want a yield on my Bitcoin. And I want to do that without giving control of my keys.
Sure, I can jump into that. So I think there are a couple of things here that we should feel apart. The first is that Stacks is a smart contract layer for Bitcoin. So Stacks is a technology, but then you would use some sort of an application built on top, right? So just like for example, on Ethereum, people have built like all sorts of different lending, borrowing, or other types of like DeFi applications. People are doing the same thing on top of Stacks and Bitcoin as well. So for in particular, trying to get like a yield on your Bitcoin, I had a tweet storm about this, so I won't go into the details. You can try to look it up. But how it works is that this application, which is a smart contract running on Stacks, can actually be the lending market, so to speak. And so you send your Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain, and there's a borrower, and the borrower is actually putting collateral in the smart contract. Let's say it's like 150% or 200% collateralized, and then the smart contract can actually watch Bitcoin blocks. Let's say the loan was like 1,000 Bitcoin blocks, and if your money doesn't come back plus interest, it can automatically release the collateral to you. So that's kind of like the skeleton of it, but more details. I think we discussed that on Twitter before. So really can look it up.
Great. We've got a question from Sash. Sorry. Go ahead with your question.
Thanks.
Sash, go ahead with your question. Okay, I think we might have lost.
I have a follow-up question, if it's okay.
Go ahead.
Like considering what's been going on with hacks and stuff lately, what's other risks of this? Are there any risks at all?
Yeah, so I think there are always risks when you're talking about giving your money to a computer program, right? Because the computer program can have bugs, it can have like unintentional things, and that's why the people behind the Stacks open source project, they've actually spent a lot of time designing a very precise
smart contract programming language. It's called Clarity. And the main difference between Clarity and what's used on Ethereum is called Solidity, is that in Clarity, you can actually have formal proofs of execution, meaning that it's not just computer code, but you have mathematical proofs that the program is only going to do what it is supposed to do, and it cannot do anything else. And I wouldn't go into the technical details, but this is actually a fundamental difference, like almost like night and day type of difference. And the reason why the researchers behind the project took so many years working on this new programming language, working on kind of like this breakthrough consensus algorithm for Bitcoin and so on, is exactly what you mentioned. So for truly enabling like Bitcoin DeFi, you need to be able to kind of like trust the underlying programming language and the smart contract, right? So all the work that went into the design of Clarity actually benefits every single developer that would ever develop on top of Stack. So in many ways, it was definitely justified to spend years and years trying to build a very secure programming language.
Thank you. But you say you would have to trust the programming and the language and everything that's been built. Like for an average user, that's hard to decide really. So is there a way to make it trustless?
I think it's a little bit like how do you trust Bitcoin, right? Because you trust the implementation of Bitcoin and the mathematics behind it. So this is very similar to that. So there are mathematical proofs of like, hey, this smart contract is going to do what it's supposed to do. So that's the type of trust I'm talking about. I'm not. It's very, very similar to how people trust Bitcoin.
Okay, thanks again. I will definitely read up on it and check it out.
Awesome. While we are getting more questions, I actually want to give a huge shout out to Shannon, who has accepted a new position at the Stacks Foundation. So I know she's a familiar figure in the Stacks ecosystem and has been responsible for so many amazing events over the years. But now she has accepted a new role at the Stacks Foundation, and I'm super thrilled for her. Obviously, you know, she's going to be super active, continue to be super active in our ecosystem. I can't wait to see what you do as part of the Stacks Foundation.
Thanks, Muneeb. It's been so great working with you and the team, and I'm just excited to be continuing the mission of building, a better internet on Bitcoin. Not to sound cheesy, but it's true. I'm glad to be in the Stacks ecosystem. So thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, we're very lucky to have Shannon in the Stacks ecosystem. She's the best. She's the best, and she's put on events with like Edward Snowden. She's put on events with Naval, Balaji. She's done like the coolest events I've been to have been Shannon's events. She's like truly world class, and I totally agree with Muneeb. And congrats again, Shan.
Thank you so much. I'm going to deflect a little bit and take the next question from Tom. Go ahead. Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations, and thanks for letting me up. Just a couple of questions. So is there a recommended wallet for using the service? And when you try to get yield on your Bitcoin, is it going to be like a single-sided staking, or is it going to be paired with a stable coin? Thanks.
Yeah, I can take this one, right? So just to be clear, the kind of functionality that is live today, you can't directly get yield on your Bitcoin right now. Right now, the yield is actually on Stacks, which is a Bitcoin yielding asset. So people lock up Stacks. I think there's a contract, you can even look it up. It's called the PX contract. I believe it has something like $400 million worth of assets locked up right now in Stacks that give like a 10% Bitcoin yield. And that yield is pure Bitcoin transaction, right? So Bitcoin literally appears in your wallet. It's quite magical. People could experience. But the next phase of that is earning a yield on your Bitcoin directly. So yeah, that's what I mean by trying to make Bitcoin productive. Because less than 1% of Bitcoin is currently productive in smart contracts. So I mean, it's being used as wrapped assets on other blockchains, not directly on Bitcoin. So that application that doesn't exist yet, but maybe people are already having one that might go live soon, is in that application you would do a pure Bitcoin transaction to interact with a smart contract on the stack side that is basically offering some sort of an interest rate. So it's pretty much like you're earning an interest by lending out your Bitcoin, but your guarantees there are that if someone defaults on the loan, they are putting up 200% collateral. Right? So for whatever reason the other person defaults on the loan and you don't get your Bitcoin plus interest back, you will get the collateral will be released to you. So those are the type of applications that I'm pretty excited about, but they're not live.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great. Any other questions?
I have a question, Shannon.
Go ahead.
How are you so amazing?
Oh my goodness. we're gonna end the session. Thanks, Alex. Oh, you caught me off guard there. Chiente and Ken, where do people find you? How do we get more information on Moon and Alex?
So the website is alexgo.io, and you can find all our updated information, white paper, etc., on docs.alexgo.io. And you find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Chiente Hsu. I don't have other names. You can find me there. Please message me. Give us some feedback. As I said, we are not your traditional startups. We are a bunch of nerds coming from Wall Street. We have seen the inefficiencies there, and we want to build a financial marketplace on Stacks. Thank you.
Yeah, and for Moon, you can just go to paywithmoon.com or follow us on Twitter, paywithmoon. Pretty much everywhere we're just paywithmoon. So, or feel free to shoot me a DM on Twitter. My DMs are open. Always happy to chat.
All right, friends, if you are not bullish about DeFi on Bitcoin after this conversation, what more do you want? DM us and let us know. Anyhow, we're off. Join us next week, same time on Thursday. We're going to bring on more founders, talk about people building great projects, and answer all of your questions about the Stacks blockchain. Have a great evening.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.